So we have been going over the 10 rules for letting go. So the first 2 weeks we went over a couple of the rules, and now we are on the third week, which is hardships can be resolved by thankfulness. It seems kind of weird to think that, but the more thankful we are in the things we have in our lives, the better life becomes. I'm pretty sure you notice that throughout your life, that when you are thankful for what you have, you don't really concentrate so much on the things you wish you had. So, I've always been singled out by others for being different through my whole childhood and even most of my adulthood. Most of the time, this seemed to attract bullying from other kids who were looking for someone to suppress and to dominate. And there I was, the different guy, looked different, acted different, so let's take them out, right? I never cracked this code in childhood on how to get over these things. I just endured every cheap verbal jab that they had, and on a lot of occasions, physical pain. From those who gained amusement from the misfortune of others, which at that time was me. That is one reason I decided to learn to fight and to protect myself. As I grew up, abuse from the bullies kind of faded away, and they transformed into verbal pokes from distant and newly acquainted friends. I'd go to various occasions, gatherings, reunions, whatever, right? And by this time, I was mostly free of my people-pleasing tendencies. Didn't really matter to me anymore who I pleased or not. I was thinking more about myself. And having developed a thick skin that I needed to stop blaming my behavior for someone else's judgment. I learned a lot of that in the Navy. You had to be thick-skinned to be in the Navy. The military will do that to you. So somewhere along the way, during a moment of a sarcastic banter with one of these friends, I received an intuition in the form of a question. What if you said thank you in response to any insult, judgment, or projection? It's a thought, isn't it? How would you react, and how do you think that they would react? And at that moment, something deep inside me just clicked into place. I knew that this was going to be the right thing. So since my daily intentions had been, and it continues to be to today, may I be a gift that is received in the lives of everyone I encounter. So what if I received even an insult as a gift that was sent to me from their divinity, a gift that was wrapped by the projections of their ego, right? Because that's all it is, right? It's their ego being projected onto me. So it was such a ridiculously liberating suggestion that I figured I just had to test it out. And a few years ago, in my life, I crossed paths with somebody. I went back to New York, and I went to a little class reunion type deal. And so, of course, I met some of these people that kind of treated me different. His once subtle forms of judgment had now become a boisterous alcohol-fueled witch hunt, I guess you could say. I don't know if he intentionally meant it as a witch hunt, but that's how it felt at the time. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what your problem is?" And I thought about it. I didn't know what he was talking about. I mean, this was 30 years ago at the time. And I said, "I don't know, but I'd love to hear what you have to say." He said, "Your problem is you have always been an outcast." And I thought about that a little bit. I don't drink. They were drunk. And I don't know if anybody else heard this, but us two, because we were just sitting there. And I sat there for a second, and, I just said, thank you. And he kind of looked at me and said, what are you saying thank you to me for? I said, thank you for your feedback. I said, I'm always interested in what other people have to say. So kind of got quiet at that time. He just smiled, and we just talked some more. So I think it kind of quelled something that might have been, maybe he would have got loud and if I testified back against that or something, but he didn't. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And it was a pretty cordial night after that, and I think it was handled quite well. And my intuition just said, let's keep doing that for everything there is in life. We cannot take these judgments, these jabs in life as a personal thing. If I would have took every jab personally in my life, I would be an angry, judgmental, obnoxious person too, right? But that's not something that I wanted. I knew in my life I've had goals to help other people since I was a child. I mean, I was raised doing auto body work, but I've always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And not being able to go to college at the time, I figured, well, my stepfather always talked about the Navy and how he loved that. So that's a choice that I made, and I figured once I get in the Navy, I'll start going to school, which I did eventually, but that just didn't turn out to be that way. As I got higher up in rank and had to counsel people, I was like, well, I don't know if psychologist or psychiatrist is what I would want. So later in my life, I became a Christian, so I started going to school for religious studies and counseling, and I became a counselor, which still just didn't cut it. It didn't hit the spot in the people's lives that I thought should be hitting. So I did some readjusting and some research, and I said, well, it looks like life coaching does exactly what it's supposed to be. It's quick. You don't have to keep going back to a counselor every week for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it seemed to get the job done. So I went through training for that, but I think the best training is life and what you go through. There's nothing like a personal story that will go into somebody's mind and their heart and say, look, this guy has been through the same thing that I have, and he's doing well. So why not listen to him, right? And so that's where I am today. But still, we learn every day, no matter if you're a counselor, psychiatrist, a preacher, or whatever, you still learn every day. You still go through things. Nobody's perfect. Nobody always follows their own advice 100% of the time. Or where would we be in life, right? It'd be boring. But so when I had this intuition about thankfulness, now it's even more. I'm so thankful about the things that I've been through in life. If I wasn't different, if I wasn't an outcast, where would I be today? Would I just given up? Would I just become something I didn't want to be? Would I have the family I had? There's so many what ifs. And I don't regret anything that's ever happened to me. Never once, because I understand it is a journey. It is a learning process that we are going through in life. And if we don't learn these things, we're not going to grow. We're not going to be better. So be thankful. Hardships can be resolved by thankfulness. And that is rule number 3. Okay. Be thankful. Take a look around in your life. What do you have to be thankful for? It doesn't have to be hardships. You can have good things. But when you're thankful for the hardships, it makes you appreciate, makes you appreciate the good things you have in life. And you really begin to be more thoughtful and loving and joyful. So that's what we need to do. So I hope you really liked rule number 3. This is one of my favorite ones. If you haven't seen the first 2, you can go back to the videos and check the first 2 out. You know, and the first one, you didn't do anything wrong, really comes into play with this one. Because the way you react is more important than what has happened to you. So be loving, be kind, but most of all, be thankful.